So in this video, we're going to talk about Dorothea Smartt's book, Connecting Medium. This is a poetry collection. And I've done videos on a couple of Dorothea Smartt's other books. I really like her work. This, to me, I think, of the three books of hers that I've read, it's really a sort of... It's an excellent representation of what I think of as Caribbean immigrant poetry. And what I mean by that is you've got different diasporic elements to a lot of Caribbean poetry. On the one hand, you have the long history of slavery in the Caribbean, which has shaped so many Caribbean cultures, including that of Barbados, where Dorothea Smartt's parents are from. But then you've got a Caribbean diaspora of people from particularly Anglophone Caribbean islands, former English colonies, British colonies, who have gone to other portions of the Anglophone world, whether that's the UK, and Smartt is from London, whether that's Canada, whether that's Australia, wherever it is. So you have those two sort of diasporic elements, and that means that a lot of times Caribbean poetry has this strong sense of not feeling like you belong. And that's really evident in Connecting Medium. This sense, particularly for second generation, whatever it is, children of immigrants. Like this feeling of, I don't belong in London, I don't necessarily belong in Barbados, I don't belong in Africa, even though those are sort of Smartt's homelands, in a way, like her ancestral homeland in Africa, because she's at least partially of African descent. Her parents were from Barbados, and so that Caribbean culture is very much a sort of indigenous culture for her, but then she is from London, and so she is British in that sense. And yet the poems reflect this sense of not quite fitting into any of these places. And so the poems that I've picked out to read for you are some of the ones that I think really represent this quite well. So the first one that I chose, I love this poem. It's called Generations Dreaming 1. Journey woman, journey man, you were a generation dreaming. Journey woman, journey man, stepping off the plane to an unknown future from a certain past that became more and more like the promise that escaped you. You were a generation dreaming to change the pattern, undo the seams, restyle the suits you wore as you stepped off the boat, Windrush style. Frederick, this not-so-young man, had struggled as a juvenile, 30s style to unionize and franchise, a troublesome man. Proud to be dark black worker, survivor, you split the seams to suit your schemes. Linda, journey woman, you were a generation dreaming, coming from a certain past, coming to an unknown future, coming to bear us and spare us from the master pattern, styled, cut, ready to wear suit of cane molasses, thick set in the heat, burning good white sugar, raising a glass of rum in the sunset of the master as you sailed away, meeting this man country face to face with dreams. Journey woman, journey man, you were a generation dreaming a world to change. I love that poem. So this idea of like the Windrush generation, which was in the late 40s, 50s into the 60s, there was a massive migration from Caribbean islands to the United Kingdom, because the people who were people from the Caribbean islands owned by the UK were British citizens. And so after World War II, a lot of people went to the UK seeking a better life. and it completely changed the ethnic makeup of the United Kingdom in a way that really led to a lot of racial tensions and things like this. You also had an influx of people from southern Asia, from India and Pakistan, particularly after partition in 1947. And so the experiences of immigrants to the United Kingdom after World War II are really now part of the story of the country, part of the story of what it means to be British. But for the Windrush generation, they often were not particularly met with open arms. And so we get some of that sense here. This idea of like changing the suit, changing the cut of the clothing, things like this, is it's an analogy that sort of represents this desire to change not only their experiences, but also in a way to change what it means to be British. So that's one thing we get. The next two poems are related to the title poems. We've got Meeting Mediums and then Connecting Medium 2. And I'm just going to read both of them here. So this is Meeting Mediums. Get away. Sorry. A round-faced sister, all in white, opened the door between two of them, swept away, feeling like a girl child trying to keep up. Conversation flying in and over my head, so many questions I don't begin to ask. The unfamiliarity of my surroundings silences me. And then Connecting Medium 2. Early this morning, I remembered the glass fish in my West Indian home, typical in shades of blue, green, and brown. When I was how old, I don't recall. I took the fish, put pennies in its mouth, did this whole little ritual in African. Did this on my own in the front room. Maybe I was homesick from school, maybe I was homesick. So in this case we get the experience of the first generation, second generation, whatever it is, immigrant to the UK who doesn't feel at home in the UK, who doesn't feel like this is where they belong. This idea of like conversation that the poet persona can't keep up with in Meeting Mediums. The unfamiliarity of my surroundings silences me. The last two lines here. That sense of like feeling like an outsider, feeling unprepared, in unfamiliar territory, literally. And then Connecting Medium 2, we get this interesting question of what home means. Because we get in my West African home, in my West Indian home. So we have the Caribbean reflected, but then we get this whole little ritual in African. And then the final idea, maybe I was homesick from school, maybe I was homesick. Homesick for where, though? Because that's the interesting question that the poem raises. Is this homesick for Barbados? Is this homesick for Africa? Or something else? So we don't know. But again, we get that feeling, of not belonging, that feeling of somehow not quite fitting in, and the discomfort that comes with that. And then the last poem I want to read you is one called Gambian Sting. And this is a really interesting one, because a lot of times there's a long tradition of African American and, I believe, Caribbean black literature of the sort of Back to Africa movement. This sense that people of African descent, particularly people whose ancestors were stolen into slavery, that they have an ancestral home in Africa to which they should return. Now this was something that really sort of hit its peak in the 20s, 30s. There was a bit of a revival in the 60s and 70s, but for the most part, I think the Back to Africa movement has largely sort of died down. But not for everybody. And so this is what we get sort of explored in Gambian Sting. And it's an interesting approach that Smartt takes to it. Gambian Sting left her in Quinella, no money, no passport, nothing. These brothers know what to say. Run it like a pre-recorded tape. Play, pause, rewind. No money, no passport, nothing. These guys had promised overstanding, saying, yes, Rasta sister, smiling at her dreads, said, yes, you are home in Africa. These brothers know what to say. Run it like a lifeline between me and the longing they read in my eyes, the restless ghosts of unspeakable times jostling for redemption. A Gambian Sting left her in Quinella at the base of a silk cotton tree, tears washing the red ochre, dusting her feet, spirits thronging to give salvation to the restless. A Gambian Sting left her in Quinella, no money, no passport, nothing. These brothers know what to say, run it like a pre-recorded tape, play, pause, rewind, the lash, the sting marking us both. So, what I find really interesting about this particular poem is that we get that Back to Africa component, but it's not that it's not positive, it's that it recognizes that the diasporic subject, even in their homeland, their ancestral homeland, the diasporic subject still is not at home. So that's a really interesting take on that feeling of disconnectedness, is that even in the place where your roots are supposed to be, you still don't fit. And it's a tension that we see in a lot of Caribbean poetry. Grace Nichols, for instance, Louise Bennett, for instance, Shara McCallum. We get this sense of disconnect as a sort of central structure to one's identity.